Goodbye. This was definitely not said afterwards and then cut in to sound like I said it right away and didn't space out.
Welcome, Realm Walkers. My name is Carlin. I'm going to be your host tonight, and I am joined by my two fellow hosts, Bryce.
Hello.
And Greg.
Yo, what's poppin'?
Many things. How are you guys doing? Well, I guess I should do it in proper order. Greg, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. School's a lot of work, but I'm always making some time to get some lore done for Age of Sigmar because we got some good shit today.
We really do. Bryce, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Feeling a bit rough today, but I'm excited about the topic we're covering. So
yeah, I gather, Greg, you feeling a little rough.
Someone was hitting the warp stone a little hard last night.
Okay, you want to know what? There was no crushing up and snorting of anything happening last night.
That's right. We injected the warp stone right into our veins.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Go home or go hard or go home, Skaven motto. And then we take your home.
Oh,
man.
wow. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to hop on that bandwagon 1 second.
Oh god, he's huffing it.
There, I feel better now. All right. Perfect. So this is going to be what we hope to be a shorter format episode. We're aiming to interject smaller episodes, just one for general, like smaller things that aren't full-on novels, and like maybe potentially battle tomes in the future we'll see, and then short story collections because we want to be able to hit those as well. But they don't need an hour and a bit long episode, so we want to hit something shorter. So today we are covering the Realm of Fire, also known as Aqshy. And we think it'll be a great episode to start this. It will be slightly longer than what we hope the other shorter format episodes end up being, just because we're going to be covering some of the content in this Soulbound RPG as well, because they have some amazing content on the Realm of Aqshy.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So I'm going to give a light explanation of Aqshy. So anyone who's listened in the prior episode, you don't need to listen to that to understand this, but if you have listened, you know the Realm of Aqshy is a very, very dark, miserable place, but that was at the point in the Age of Chaos. Aqshy isn't always like that. It is always a realm of passion and kind of volatile emotions, but there is beauty to it. It is very much a place of fire, magma, and that, but it's also a place where metal gets forged and beautiful constructions are able to be made. Aqshy is also known as a bright realm to the people because of the sheer amount of light from all the fire. There is a lot of culture there. People are able to survive, even though you think burning crazy people couldn't there. There is thriving cities and a whole culture in Aqshy. There is water in Aqshy, even though it probably evaporates and the lakes are much smaller than in regular realms, but there is different types of weather. It's just, in general, way warmer than other realms. And I really like the philosophy of the Aqshian people. This philosophy is to burn brightly and well. Life is to be lived fast, hard, and violently, which means essentially life is going to be short there. So they want you to live it to its fullest in a very short amount of time. They have coming of age rituals such as like cliff diving and sulfur running and a whole bunch of other things, which may kill the people who are doing them, but it is all part of that whole burn brightly and well motto philosophy.
So what you're saying is their cultural motto is YOLO.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah, so essentially YOLO is their whole life philosophy. And that is the realm of Aqshy. People are trying, to live life to its fullest because it may be short, especially when the ages of chaos happened, then everything became a lot more short and a lot more burny. And speaking of which, Greg, mind breaking down history for us?
All right, so I'm going to be covering a brief history of the land of Aqshy, starting from the Age of Myth and going through to the Age of Chaos. So I'm taking my information from the core rulebook, as it's what I have read. And the very first little story we see from the Age of Myth is known as the Duel of the Great Worms. So at the very dawn of the Age of Myth, the great solar drake Ignax, is fighting the father of serpents, the great Nagendra. They are battling each other for the domination of the heartlands of Aqshy. And after a tremendous battle, Ignax does come out on top, but he's weak and he's tired. And Grimnir, seeing that Ignax is exhausted, shackles him to the land of the chained sun, and that way his people will always have light and fire. Moving
Pretty
forward,
cool.
the next big event is after Grimnir is freed by a Sigmar. So the next big event we see is known as the Rage of Grimnir. Grimnir, after being freed by Sigmar, not wanting to be indebted to the god, asks, "What foe would you like me to slay?" And it is decided that Grimnir will battle Volcatrix, the mother of salamanders. The two of them battle, and it's a tremendous, ridiculous, like realm-shattering battle, and a volcano is formed just from the embers of their destruction, of their mutual battle. And from this battle, Urgold, which is a very important resource, is spread across the realm of Aqshy. And it also cleanses the land of sort of the foul dusts that made it uninhabitable. And moving forward, this is when we finally see the sort of basis of society and civilization form within the realm of Aqshy. Sigmar sort of oversees for a little bit as people begin to finally start to work together. Wars and rivalries are sort of put aside. Traders are moving around. Great cities are finally raised. And we finally see the name of two very important, very, very important nations. They are the nation of Batar and the nation of Asperia. The nation of Batar becomes this powerful merchant civilization, and Asperia becomes this very powerful nation of wizards. And there's also a huge amount of people and civilizations that exist beyond these two that are basically kind of left behind. They're still barbaric and warlike. For simplicity's sake, I'm not going to go through all of their names because there's so many names of different barbaric tribes, but for now what you need to remember is Batar is the merchants, Asperias are the wizards, and there is a large swath of people that are kind of left behind still in the old ways of barbarism. And these people actually see at this point Sigmar as this god of might and self-preservation. So as these sort of the stuff, or as nations and civilization starts to grow, Batar and Asperia actually become sort of like rivalry, but also beneficial to each other, as each one is driving the other nation to these amazing heights, advancing at incredible speed. And so as these civilizations begin to rise, the greatest currency and the most important currency in Aqshy begins to, or the most important resource in Aqshy becomes water. It's very hard to get water in the realm of fire, so it becomes worth almost more than gold itself. So, with water becoming this incredibly important trade resource, especially from Guyane, there is, I believe they call the water of Guyane is so super nourishing that they actually import it through the realm gate to bring to their farmers because it is that valuable.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay, is there a problem?
Guyran.
Okay.
You're saying Guyane.
Guyran. You're right, it is Guyran.
Yep.
How dare you make fun of the realm of life?
Nah, it's fine. You guys get to make fun of Sigmar. He can mess up Guyran.
Don't worry about repeating yourself. I just need to point that out, and I'm going to keep this
Yeah.
in as a funny.
Yeah, no, that's pretty funny. I like it. Okay, so it's Guyran. I apologize to everyone out there who is a Guyran stan. As we all know, I stan the Warp Stone, so I can appreciate it. Anyway, so moving on. So this water becomes this incredibly valuable resource. Trade is booming. The wizards are, they're learning new magics, creating these amazing works of art. And so Batar decides it wants to build a literal floating city for its traders to help facilitate the movement of all of these goods. And Asperia actually assists Batar by enchanting their ships with the ability to fly so they can trade even farther beyond just coasts. And so, like, everything is just going wonderfully over there. The cities are booming, civilization is going fantastically. And then things start to get a little bit problematic for the people of Aqshy. So it's at this point that we see a bunch of Oruk warbands start to move into Aqshy. They're looking for just places to fight, and they're sort of fighting with these barbarian tribes. And so now the orcs are kind of dealing with all these people that are sort of from this nation of barbarians. The barbarians are fighting back, and at this point, Asperia and Batan just kind of look down and they say, "It's not our problem. Out there, they can war and battle amongst themselves. It does not affect us within our walls." And this attitude is what is eventually going to lead to the downfall of Aqshy. Because while these people, or while Batar and Asperia believe themselves to be untouchable because of the warring in between these clans of savages as they see them, they don't see that there are people beginning to work to kind of bring these savages and barbarians together. And now we see a very important event, and this is what leads to the downfall, and it is known as the Red Feast. Basically, a bunch of the different warlords and these war bands sort of come together, and they want to end this tribal war. So they send their champions to sort of battle it out on one of Akshi's isles. However, one of them, Skullbrand, does sort of have an ulterior motive and knows and in doing so. And while this battle, which is known as the Red Feasting, we will see the first introduction, the mighty Lord Korgus Kull, as he fights his way and sort of becomes the top fighter in this giant bloodbath of barbarian tribes. And I'm going to read this next part out verbatim because it's very, very interesting. When the death toll rises to 888 barbarian champions, the air screams, the bloodied water boils, and a great cataclysm erupts. So catastrophic is the maelstrom of blood and death that the realm gate at the center of Akshi's Clavis Isles explodes, leaving a gaping hole in reality through which the legions of howling demons emerge. And it is from this Akshi is invaded by the legions of the Chaos Gods.
That is a huge moment.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's very important. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time the demons made it through into the mortal realms, or am I wrong about that?
It's definitely one of the opening points.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's the first invasion.
Yeah, the thing about kind of some of the invasions that happen in Mortal Realms, like between the different realms, a lot of them kind of happen in very close time. So I don't think there's a specific time frame of which one's first, but based on the order of how it's done in the core rulebook and such, we can say it's the first one. But I think like certain realms and such were all invaded at the same time, but it's kind of within 100 years, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I believe the book mentions that Torn's invasion was the first one.
Okay, if there's a mention, I must have missed it, but yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is the moment when this moment, or at least in this series of moments, this is when the Age of Chaos begins. Khorne and all of the Chaos Gods, in fact, invade Aqshy. However, Khorne, who has a particular interest in claiming Aqshy for his own, sends forth the greatest number of warriors or of demons. And at this point, we finally are introduced to the Gore Tide. We mentioned them briefly, I believe, in the last part. But Korgus Kull forms a group of warriors. It is the largest group of, sort of the largest war band of these barbarians that is still around. And it is known as the Gore Tide. And Korgus Kull builds this by basically walking up to anybody he conquers and going, "You can die now, or you can feast upon the blood and the meat of the fallen and join us in our ever-growing conquest of this plane." At this point, tons of people begin to just take that option. They are afraid to die, so they join with him. They don't fully understand what is happening yet, and tons of people begin to fall and join this rising tide of barbaric warriors. And
I need to correct you, Greg.
What? Yeah.
Corgus Call said cannibalism or death. Get it
Ah,
right. Cannibalism or death. Cannibalism or death.
all right. Fair enough. I mean, I'm sure that he said it in many different ways: cannibalism or death, eatus or yeetus, things like that.
Eatus or yeetus. Oh my. Oh. That was good.
And yeah, so of course, Batar and Asperia are absolutely horrified at what's going on, and again, they choose not to intervene. They just close their gates and go, "It's not our problem." And between the two nations, the first to fall is Batar. Although these events do happen similarly, at least first in the book. Just for clarification, they might have happened at different times, but the book does put Batar first. Batar is it's closed itself off. However, Nurgle, seeing that Batar is basically this lifeblood of important resources with water, decides to send this massive plague fleet to just decimate Batar. In a week-long battle, their navy and the city is just destroyed. And the kegs of water, or the barrels of water, are washing up amongst all of the shores across the entire land for weeks afterwards. There was that much destruction.
All I heard was keg.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so these kegs of Nurgle's brew wash up everywhere, and of course they have now been tainted by Nurgle. But people not realizing that this water has been tainted, simply seeing water as a lifeblood and a necessity, take it in and they start drinking it, and now disease is rampant across Aqshy. Meanwhile, at this point, Kull has taken a massive land for himself. He's just like our Gortide is swathed across the land. He has this massive space for themselves that they have claimed and conquered. And Corgus Kull begins to create his red pyramid. And if we recall, this is the structure made out of millions and millions of bones, or specifically skulls that he has taken and claimed for himself. And Asperia is not faring much better than Batar was. The mages, or the scions of Tzeentch, have specifically targeted Asperia, and the two of them, the battling is so intense that the land itself begins to literally crumble away, being diminished and eroded by Chaos's touch and this battle that is just going on. And while they seem to be evenly matched, a legion of Khorne appears basically on the other side of their territory, and Asperia, realizing they have absolutely no chance against this army of Tzeentch and this army of Khorne, retreat to their inner cities, lock the doors, throw up magical wards, and just hope for the best. Again, just retreating when they could have been invading or fighting back, because at this point they have neglected the responsibility of being this powerful nation and taking responsibility for action, that they have just let Khorne and Tzeentch and Nurgle and all them completely destroy their plane. And it begins once they close themselves in what is known as the Red Century. And at this point, 100 years of war, grinding attrition between the few remaining forces that believe in Sigmar and believe in order, and these legions of barbarians and demons ensues. The land becomes just choked with blood and gore, so much so that plants can't grow anymore. Water becomes completely just choked with blood. You can't drink it anymore. And the heroes and the warriors of Aqshy just start beginning to vanish in the middle of war. There's a flash of light, and their warriors are gone, which of course we now know was Sigmar grabbing them before their death so he could make them into the Stormcast. However, these desperate people, they're so desperate, they basically either just let themselves be conquered or are no force to being conquered, and many just resort to cannibalism, as it's the only source of food that is left. And it's so bad for everybody that we even see a little mention here. The orcs themselves, they couldn't help, they couldn't do anything. They were pushed back into their own little canyon that they had claimed in Aqshy, and were praying to Mork for safe passage out of Aqshy. It was that bad.
That says something right there.
There was one last hope. There is a weapon known as the Prismaticon, and it is a weapon that is so powerful that it was able to destroy an entire host of Khorne demons in one strike. And it is located upon a floating island, seemingly safe. However, Khorne, realizing that these people are not really engaging in interesting or great combat, they're just hiding on their island shooting down this magical beam, takes personal offense to this, or personal exception, and manifests a giant fist and slams the island out of the sky. And when that island hits the ground and is destroyed, that is it. There is no more saving Aqshy at this point. Chaos has won. And it is mentioned that the Lords of Chaos had done such a good job that the minions of Khorne were now forced to stride far and wide to even find anybody to fight anymore. And without anybody to fight, they simply engage in bloodlust and battle upon themselves. And Aqshy has been completely conquered at this point. And that leads us into the Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, that's, we touched on a bit of the history when we covered kind of the ages of myth and chaos, but having the specific history of the realm, there's some good stuff there. Like, it's fascinating, but just seeing how everything fell apart, especially like how hubris played such a part in the realm falling.
It's hubris and like ignorance and refusal to take responsibility. It's the not my problem kind of
mindset
issue here. Yeah.
Mhm.
If Asperia and Batar had stepped in at any point to try to save these individuals instead of just focusing on their own gains and desires, that there was a chance that they that this never would have happened. But it was so many times they said, I'm not interested, I don't care, it's not my problem, that they just let themselves be completely overrun.
100%. It's incredible kind of seeing how essentially Khorne had the perfect gateway to get into the realm because of all this whole not my problem thing. If people had united and got together, they might have been able to push them back at least a little bit. But because they didn't, and because they were like, oh, not my problem, Khorne is like, haha, I'm going to kill you.
Yep.
Yeah, and the whole giant fist in the sky to knock down the flying city, or the that part, I believe that is one of the few times that we've seen a chaos god actually manifest itself.
Yeah, he was not happy about that one.
No, not at all. Yeah, no, it's incredible. I love it. Bryce, since you have the Soulbound content available, would you mind running us through some of what Soulbound kind of adds to the realm? Like what it tells us and how it kind of defines the realm a little bit more.
Yeah, so with the Soulbound book, because it's one of the bigger volumes of, current Age of Sigmar lore, it really helps us get a view of what the realm itself kind of looks like currently. It did come with a map of the Great Parch, which is kind of like the main civilized area of the realm, because again, once you get towards the edge of the realm, it just kind of turns to pure magic stuff, so you can't exactly civilize literal burning fields. I know this is Warhammer, but I don't think I've seen anybody actually do that yet. Yet. It is Warhammer, so I'm not going to rule it out 100%.
There's still time.
Mm-hmm.
They can have warp stone.
Goddamn. But yeah, so the realm itself is kind of known as the Splintered Realm currently because of just all of the events that have happened, and just the nature of the realm is literally causing the continents and lands of Aqshy to kind of split up. There's two kind of prevailing theories for this right now. You have kind of like Sigmar followers thinking that, after this great battle in the Age of Myth, that Sigmars might cause the realms to start fracturing. And then the other main belief is from the Fire Slayers, who think that the battle between Grimnir and Volcatrix has been slowly causing the lands to kind of crack and sunder because of that massive battle in the past. But going to the Age of Sigmar, now, Aqshy is probably the realm with the most presence of Sigmar followers or just followers of Order. This is partially because of just such the heavy concentration of chaos that was here that he just kind of needed to focus majority of his efforts here. This place is, home to a ton of different fallen empires. Grade kind of focused on Batar and Asperia quite a bit with his mentions of the Age of Myth and the Age of Chaos, but a little bit more specific from Soulbound. You get a little bit of information about the Adleraxi out of Asperia. They were like a great mage race, civilization, I guess I should say, that kind of fell. You had the Kells of Ekran, which were like these great warrior clans and stuff like that. And then there's also a mention of the Vitrolian vassal kingdoms of Cinder, but I couldn't find very much information outside of that. Again, like Greg mentioned earlier, they're still prevalent now, but a lot of the survivors from the Age of Chaos ended up joining up with Torgus Kull and his Gortide, so that is still a major thing, even though it's hundreds of years after the Age of Sigmar has kind of started in Aqshy. So kind of getting like a more current view of specific areas of the realm. Batar was never completely lost to chaos. They got the crap kicked out of them, but there is still one major city called the Floating City. It's kind of like the main source of sky commerce, and it's the main kind of source of power, center of power for the Terradron in Aqshy.
Okay, so the city did actually survive then. The
Yeah,
book's
yeah.
a little unclear.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
It might just be, different writers and stuff like that.
No, it's I'm coming from the book. If anybody is worried that I made a mistake, I'm coming from the main book here and learning. So Bryce knows a lot more than me. And yeah, the book doesn't quite explain. It says that the fleet is destroyed, which I of course assumed meant the city itself was destroyed. But it's nice to know that it survived.
Yeah. So the city wasn't made out of the fleet. The city itself is like just a massive, I guess, I don't know, steampunk floating city. And they had multiple, like tons of these cities throughout Batar, but like you said, they were basically just brought down by Nurgle being an asshole. I mean, a great loving grandfather.
Gotta say, Nurgle's not an asshole.
Here's my gift. My gift is death. And you know what? It's Nurgle, so that might not actually be a bad gift.
Kind of going back to, the people that do inhabit the lands, still, there is a mention of these buccaneer lords that sail across the boiling seas. They're kind of, trying to gather as much force, as much strength underneath them as they can, because they do want to, get back to doing what buccaneers do. Outside of those two, the other like major kind of place of notice for a specific like faction is Vastardi Mont, which it looks like it's pretty central to the Great Parch. Is the main home of the Fire Slayers, and I believe Greg mentioned earlier was actually the like final spot of fighting for that great fight between Grimnir and Volcatrix. But other than those cities, we have seen the rise of a lot of cities of Sigmar in Aqshy. Like I said, this is kind of the main place of his power because of how much chaos was here. So we've seen cities of Sigmar. I guess this first one, not so much a city of Sigmar anymore. Anvilgard was one of them. We have Tempest Eye, which is kind of a major place for the elves in the realm. Hollowheart, which is home to the Hallowed Knights Stormhost. Bright Spear, which is actually a reclaimed city out of Asperia. It's also, I believe, the newest city of Sigmar. Actually, I believe it's still in like its infancy steps of becoming like an actual city of Sigmar, but it functions enough to be named one. And then the biggest and kind of greatest of the cities of Sigmar in the Great Parch is Hammerhall Aqshy. It's called Hammerhall Aqshy because it actually has the biggest realm gate in Aqshy, I believe, that goes straight to Gairan. So on the opposite side of this realm gate is the other half of Hammerhall, which is called Hammerhall Gaira. And these two parts of the city give it its name, the Twin-Tailed City. Again, this is kind of like the biggest, greatest city in, I believe, both these realms, now that I think of it. And they're just like absolute massive metropolises that, you know, there's these towering bastions throughout the cities and, you know, artillery batteries along pretty much every side of the city to protect it. You have these giant mobile cog forts that kind of roam around the city. They're like literal mobile bases that kind of just roll around and protect it. So like this place is really the center of Sigmar's efforts in this realm. But outside of these cities, like we've heard, not everything is super terrible anymore. Like things are still bad. This is still the realm of fire, so it's not like you're going to be seeing, you know, great plains of grass everywhere and stuff like that. The land has been kind of reclaimed. It's kind of morbid, using the blood of, like, I'm trying to remember the name. I want to say zealots, but it's not the name. Flagellants. But yeah, they kind of use the blood of Sigmar's followers to cleanse the land, so everything's not so chaos ridden anymore, and like the lands are hospitable to a degree. You can find actual like great plains of grass and stuff like that, but that's probably where most of the wildlife is going to be. So they're not exactly the safest places to be because of the wildlife, and, you know, roaming warbands and stuff like that are still very much an issue. But these dangers don't stop the followers of Sigmar and the followers of other gods and stuff like that from braving these dangers to try and find the secrets and, you know, lost treasures of these ancient empires that litter the realm. Like, they're everywhere. Like Grade was saying, Chaos had to literally go to the edges of habitable realm to find, you know, opponents to fight. So like they literally annihilated majority of civilization.
Corn be going door to door, and be like, have you heard the good word of corn? No, here it is. They just stab them.
Well, it is the word of corn, after all.
There's not a lot of words. That word is ah.
So yeah, I kind of really focused on, you know, the forces of order, followers of Sigmar there, but Chaos still very much has a foothold in these lands, like I've kind of mentioned. Again, Cordius Kull and his Gortide are very much an issue. They still harass cities, and, you know, they still harass and just straight up kill armies that are, you know, traveling between places. They're just still looking for a fight, like Corn followers like to. They still have the issue of the Slaaneshi Podunant, Havoc Wild, or also known as the Headsman of Thurn. This is kind of like a major lord of Slaanesh that just goes around murdering and killing and doing what Slaanesh do. The book says from the crackling coast to the riven depths. So kind of looking on this, it's more to like the central middle areas of Aqshy are just terrorized by this Slaaneshi follower that's just trying to, you know, make his missing god happy. Another kind of central focus for Chaos is still in Asperia, with like Greg was mentioning, all those mage civilizations and stuff like that. Once they were gone, some of their secrets still were around. So once the forces of Sigmar started, you know, getting back into these areas, they were able to start, you know, reclaiming some of these lost magics and techniques and trinkets and stuff like that. And because of this, Tzeentch still is sending his forces in there, and you know, there's just followers of Tzeentch trying to make him happy by finding these magics for him, or finding these trinkets for him, or just straight up killing the forces of order that find them.
Yeah.
Currently, there is actually a lot of clashes between the forces of Brightspear and the forces of Tzeentch underneath them, because, like you were mentioning earlier, when one of the final places of kind of survivors in Asperia kind of trapped themselves in and blocked themselves out with magic, Brightspear was one of these cities before it fell. Or sorry, it was one of these cities before it was reclaimed, I should say. And because they had kind of trapped themselves in, they had just dug and made these huge, like, webs of city underground. So a lot of Tzeentch forces and stuff like that are actually still in these lower parts of the city, and the forces of order are actually still trying to reclaim those from that's like trapped down there now. It's like a very slow kind of, they're slowly winning, but again, it's taking a toll on them, and the city still isn't quite safe because of it.
The battle of attrition.
Mm-hmm. And then, like I was saying earlier, you can kind of, not everything is super fire in the realm, and that kind of is shown where the Skaven kind of reside in the realm, because they've kind of focused themselves on what's called the Snow Peaks, which is actually the mountains of the northern part of the Great Parch. But again, the Skaven can never really be held to one part of, you know, any sort of realm. So while they are mostly focused there, they can be found throughout the entire realm, and not in small numbers either.
If there is one Skaven, there will soon be many.
Yes. Outside of the forces of chaos, there still are threats. The orcs are back. They're not praying to Gorkamork anymore to get the hell out of here. They are wanting the fuck out.
Wow.
And alongside them in the Destruction faction, there's a noted Odor, actually, a fire belly called the Ashfoot, who apparently is hunting out the father of all main Madroths, who does not have a name apparently, or at least one that I could find. However, the Ogre's on this, you know, quest to find the father of all main Madroths isn't going to ignore food when it presents itself in the form of, you know, a traveling warband or an army or trader's route or something like that. The last kind of mention of people that you can find in Aqshy out of the Soulbound book are the vampire corsairs of the dreaded Wraith Fleet, which I think is pretty cool. They're led by a vampire lord called Varkos of Varaktir, who, since the Necroquake during the Soul Wars, basically Nagash tried doing the giant ritual. Daven showed up, fucked things up. Nagash still managed to invert magic, and this caused a lot of like undead and stuff like that across the realms to kind of spring up. And this vampire lord has really been taking advantage of this kind of swell in death magic. I really do like his main method of attacking, though, which consists of actually attacking cities hundreds of miles inland with his spectral fleets. So not only can he wage war on you from the oceans, he can just fly his boats inland and rain just, you know, destruction on you. With the mention of Varkos, that's kind of the last little bit of interesting stuff that you get out of the Soulbound book.
Nice. Yeah, there's a good amount of content that they added to actually with the Soulbound book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, especially considering how important it's supposed
Yeah,
to be.
it really, like, with the Soulbound book, like I said, they put out a map of the Great Parch, and anybody who's listening, I really, really suggest just giving it a quick Google, because it will do 100 times more for you to kind of understand what the realm looks like than we possibly can explain it.
Yeah.
100%. Like, it's really kind of cool, and I do appreciate with more recent battle tomes that they've been adding maps. Like, I know with Sons of Bahamut they added Gur. I know with the Lumineth they've added Hish. So it seems like they're trying to make
That's
a point
awesome.
of make it more, adding more physicality to realms rather than their kind of loose maps that they had before.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it almost seemed like they're trying to leave it kind of very much like up to the imagination and everything. But when you look at, like, let's say Dungeons and Dragons, even Dungeons and Dragons has maps. Now you can play fast and loose to them and add or take away from it. But it's something that helps ground the adventure, and I think they're trying to do too much imagination of it, and now they're grounding it a little bit more with Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, I definitely think with I definitely think that the success of D&D has, I think that they really decide to kind of cash in on Soulbound and, you know, try and do the story and lore right.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, I think that's all of that. So really, my last question to you guys is, what have you been hobbying lately? Because no, these times are tough, and hobbying's what gets us through. So, Greg, what have you been hobbying, if anything? Because I know you've been busy with school.
Well, so me and Bryce actually did a joint hobby recently.
Ooh.
We got together and we painted. Well, we based a bunch of his Stormcast that he had left over to finish up his army. I can't remember what the models were though. They were the ones with the sword and the spear. I don't remember what they're called. Was it
No, it was my
Liberators?
evocators. I had 12 evocators.
Stormcast
Oh,
dudes.
okay.
Yeah. They're the
Yeah.
really cool ones that do really cool things on the tabletop.
So every Stormcast to you?
I mean, I'm not going to call out any Stormcast, but, you know, I definitely appreciate some more than others.
Yeah. My favorite model is apparently the worst one, the Castigators. They look like they have crossbow guns. Turns out they suck. That makes me sad.
They
but
don't suck. I don't like them as much as I like Judicators.
Fair enough. So we did a bunch of that, and at the same time, I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I am currently kit bashing a bunch of Beasts of Nurgle. I needed a bunch, and I'm not a huge fan of the Games Workshop sculpt, and so I've been digging through my box of bits, and I made I don't know if I mentioned that I made 2 last week that are done and painted, although I'm gonna go back and add a little bit more goop because I bought some of the goop technical, Nurgle's Rot, and I made 2 more at when we were hanging out. One kind of has sort of a T-Rex look to him, and the other one is literally a pile of what was left stacked to look like a slime monster. So yep, that's everything. And as always, those 3 crisis suits are not painted, but I do have, I finally got the Blood Angels red, so now I'm gonna have to come up with another excuse for why I don't do it
You
every
can
week.
do it.
Fair enough. Bryce. Well,
Yes.
you were working with Greg, obviously, but was there anything else you've been hobbying lately?
Not too much. Like Greg said, we got together and did some painting. He helped me get some base colors put onto my evocators, and with that, I have a bit more motivation. So, you know, hopefully next time we're recording, I can tell you how I put my Mephiston red on it.
Whoa. Nice.
No, I'm hoping to get some of them finished up within the next week. Now that I have kind of the majority of the process done.
Nice. That's awesome. I haven't necessarily done too much in the way of hobbying this week, just because this week was exam week for me, so I've been pretty busy. While we were recording, I was cleaning up some resin from the Artel Iron Rider model.
Nice.
This model is fucking epic in every single way. I can't wait to paint it. I painted 2 smaller Artel models, and they were an absolute joy to paint. And I've been waiting for these guys for a little while, so I'm going to enjoy it. Just because Artel makes everything to order. So I ordered back, end of November, I think. And I just got them a week ago. So they take a while, but the quality of resin here, I was saying to Greg before we recorded, Forge Rule, pay attention to these guys. They're doing resin properly. There's not a crazy amount of gaps. This stuff is already pre-washed before I get it. I'm just cleaning off resin bits more so than anything else, things from the protruders. That's it. Like, this stuff goes together beautifully. There's no cracks, no crazy needing to green stuff, everything. You glue it, it's done. That's it. No washing, no scrubbing, no filling in all the gaps. This stuff is beautiful. Forge will step up your game because these other companies are doing an amazing job, and I like some of your models, but you need to step it up, especially at your price point.
Call out Games Workshop.
Oy, oy, oy. But yeah, no, this is beautiful. I am on reading break, so I'm gonna be working a little bit more, but at the same time, I'm gonna have a way more free time. I am planning to hobby like nothing else. Because I really want to get gas done. I have a whole bunch of other models I want to get done. I'm planning to experiment a little bit because I have some. Oh, why am I forgetting her name? Skeleton dudes. Ozark Bone Reaper models that I got like just a couple of the heroes. So I want to play around with a scheme with them. I'm thinking I have this really vibrant green. I want to play like with that with blacks and see how that goes. And yeah, and I started reading the first of the like old world Gotrek and Felix books this weekend, and so far I've been loving it. Gotrek is the man.
Yeah, I've really been wanting to get into those since I mean, before I bought the model because I wanted to get into the books, and I had been reading a little bit about them. But
yeah,
there's
well, Realm Slayer is an amazing book. You don't need to read the books beforehand. That said,
you don't?
No, Realm Slayer, because
Cool.
it's essentially new canon with AOS. The other books technically lead up to it, but it starts off kind of new. It more or less, as long as you have a basic knowledge of some of the characters, like Gotrek, Felix, and Felix doesn't appear. Gotrek makes very clear he's looking for a manling, so they explain who he is, but if you know who Felix is, and say, oh, okay. But yeah.
Okay. Cool,
yeah, so Realm Slayer is a book on its own, and then it continues on with Ghoul Slayer and the upcoming Git Slayer, which I'm super excited for.
Boy, those poor Gits. Those poor Gits.
Poor Gits indeed. But don't worry, when we cover the book Gloomspite, you're not going to be saying poor Gits.
No,
in fact,
I
you're going to
won't.
be like, oh god, Gits.
I don't even know why I said it now.
Oh, I'm looking forward to getting to some of those horror novels because they are juicy. And Bryce will be cringing every moment.
I don't think it'll be that bad.
So, thank you for listening to Realm Walkers. And by joining us today, you are Realm Walkers too. Please like and follow us on Facebook, where we have lore and hobby discussions with you. Please give us a feedback on Facebook or through our email at realmwalkers, plural, AOS@gmail.com. You can also find a link to our email on our Facebook page. We look forward to having you join us next time as we dive into the next book of the Realmgate Wars, Born by the Storm.
Yeah.
It's gonna be epic.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to you there, guys, and see you then.
Goodbye.
Have a good one.